Welcome to the Holiness Today podcast. On this episode, I have a conversation with Chad Dickerson. He and his wife Lindsay are missionaries for the Church of the Nazarene and are currently serving in Spain. Chad, I met you in Kansas City, where you meet everyone in the Church of the Nazarene at one point or another. If you're in Kansas City, you just seem to cross paths with many Nazarenes coming and going. But you were actually in Kansas City, I think at that point, getting your MDiv at Nazarene Theological Seminary. I was working at the Global Ministry Center, still am, not in Kansas City anymore, but I don't remember. I think it was through Michael Thompson, and so that's what I'm going to ask you about to start off, I guess. But you have a legal background, legal connection, but just maybe the first question, there's always angles of approach. Just tell us where you're at today, and then we can kind of go from there.
Yeah, sure. So I live in Madrid, Spain, with my wife and our two kids. We have been here for about 3 years as missionaries with the Church of the Nazarene. And before that, I was living in Ecuador in South America. And then we were invited to come here. And I think you're probably right that I was in Kansas City to, as part of my MDiv classes, I had to go there to the seminary campus every once in a while for in-person classes. And since it took me 7 years to finish it, I made quite a few trips that direction.
Yeah. So when you were traveling there, were you traveling up from South America, or where were you traveling from to get to the seminary at that point in time?
Yeah, so I was living in Quito, Ecuador. After my first year of seminary, I was living in Delaware, where I'm from. And then I was sent by the church to Quito, Ecuador, and I would fly up once a year to Kansas City and take my in-person classes. Yeah. So
going from there, I mentioned lawyer, but share a little bit about your background. So you, where'd you go to? University of Delaware look like? Is that where you went to undergrad? And then got a law degree there, or where did you get your law degree? I didn't do a good bio.
Okay. Yeah. So I grew up in Delaware my whole life. Went to the University of Delaware for my undergrad because Delaware had a program where you could get 2 years of college for free if you graduated from Delaware High School. And also I was kind of a homebody, so I didn't want to move too far away from home. And so I went to the University of Delaware, which ended up being a great option for what I wanted to study, which was Spanish language. I wanted to be a court interpreter. And then I added on a criminal justice major about halfway through because honestly, it was because I could get my classes at a satellite campus that was 30 minutes from my house instead of an hour and a half. And so it was easier for me to do the double major and be closer. But then I decided to go to law school after because I thought speaking Spanish every day as an interpreter was going to be too difficult. And so I talked to some professors and stuff and asked what they thought. And one of their suggestions was to go to law school. So I went to Delaware Law School at Widener University. When I started, it was called Widener Law, but then they changed it about halfway through. Yeah, so I got my JD, my Juris Doctor degree there. And then, in my last semester of studies there, I went on a work and witness trip. That's kind of where my missions call got restarted.
So did you go to South America? Where did you head out for your missions trip? Was it Quito?
We went to Pisco, Peru, actually. And we worked on a couple of churches there.
Yeah. So what was that like? I mean, was it a sudden moment, an epiphany, or had you kind of been feeling that might be something? Obviously, there was something pushing you to go on a missions trip, but how did that kind of grow in you?
Yeah, so I remember being kind of a young teenager, 13, 14 years old, and feeling a call to missions, or at least maybe like an attraction to what I was hearing from missionaries who were visiting my church. And I remember telling a few people, I'm going to be a missionary. And I remember telling one of my grandfather's friends, and his response to me was, "Is there a lot of money in that?" I remember that I had that kind of pull to go into cross-cultural work because of that specific conversation, because it impacted me. But then um, when I went on that work and witness trip to Peru, one of the things that I decided before going was I needed to kind of really dedicate that time to trying to hear from God. I was finishing up my law degree. I knew where I kind of potentially would want to work and what kind of law I would want to practice. And I kind of had a plan, right? But I wanted to reaffirm, I want to do what God wants me to do. And so I made a commitment that while I was on that trip, I was going to do extra devotions time apart from what the team was doing and from what I would normally do. I was going to try to spend more time in prayer, which is kind of crazy because when you're on those trips, a lot of times you don't have like even a moment to yourself sometimes because you're sharing a room with somebody, you have devotions with the team, food with the team, working with the team. But I remember we went to the job site one day, and this team was kind of special because there were a bunch of people who were either there were a few people who had worked together in Venezuela, in South America, and were in different parts of the U.S. or other countries. And Craig Zickafoos was there. He was a retired missionary, and we were doing the typical, shoveling stone into a cement mixer. And I remember we had gotten the last shovelfuls into the mixer, and it was doing its thing, And I remember him just putting his shovel down and looking at me and saying, "Why don't you come back to Peru for 6 months as a volunteer?" At that point it was they called uh, temporary missionaries or short-term missionaries volunteers, and I don't know if he felt like he was speaking inspired words or if, his intent was to change the course of my life. But I remember telling people it felt like he picked up that shovel and whacked me across the head with it when he said that, because it was God speaking through him, kind of. And I felt all of these feelings of kind of this calling, this desire that I had had before coming back up, right? And it felt like, oh, maybe this is a possibility, which seemed crazy because I had just spent 3 years of my life uh, studying law and was about to spend 3 months prepping for one of the hardest exams that you can take, right? The bar exam. But I prayed about it for several weeks, and God confirmed it, and I went to do my 6 months as a volunteer, and I thought that was going to be the end of it.
And we'll be right back.
I believe that God is still calling people, and people are still saying yes. He's calling young people, women and men. He's calling people who are a little bit older. He's calling families. He's calling his whole church, and he's calling us to missions. If you're a young person and you sense that God is calling you, maybe tugging your heart with a sense of calling your life, don't ignore it. Pray about it, talk to your pastor about it, and then come and speak to us in Global Missions. Go to the website, nazarene.org/the cause. And there you will see some things that will give you excitement and opportunity to be part of the cause of the King and the cause of the kingdom. I hope you do.
Now, back to the rest of the episode. So did you take the bar exam before you did that volunteer, or did you study for the bar exam while you were down there, or how did that timeline work out?
So in Delaware, I don't know how it is now, but it used to be in Delaware, you would take the bar exam and then you would have 4 or 5 months before you would find out the results. And so what I did was I graduated in May, and then the exam was in late July. And so basically spent those 3 months, all of May, all of June, all of July until the exam, studying 15 hours a day or something. Took the exam in mid to late July, and then 2 days later got on the plane and went to Peru for my 6 months. Yeah.
Well, it was probably good to have something distracting you so you weren't sitting around waiting on your results, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I remember I had, you can't forget that you're waiting on something like that, but they don't give you a specific date when the results are going to come out. But I remember I was in a conference with a bunch of pastors, and I just saw the email pop up on my computer, and it was like this huge, thing for me, and nobody else knew what was going on or what had happened, but I found that I'd passed, and it was like, okay, now what do I do?
Yeah. Yeah. So then what did you do? So what happened after that?
Well, I had tried to find some other opportunities to continue serving as a volunteer in other places, because I really felt like God was developing what the call was He had placed on my life, and I interpreted that kind of um, desire for burning, calling to be, oh, keep doing missions, and those doors kind of shut, and I don't know why they shut. And I talked to one of the people I was working with to try to open up another opportunity, and he was like, I just stopped working on it, and I don't know what happened. And so I went home, and I worked for a year for the state of Delaware as a deputy attorney general, which is like a state's attorney kind of position. And during that time, actually, my dad got really sick. He had COPD for a long time, and he was entering into the end stages. And so I look at that as, maybe God closed those doors so that I could be present, to be there with him. And I was able to have a conversation with him that I don't think it led him to reconcile with the Lord. I think he had already done that. But I think what it did was it let me know that had happened, right? It gave me that kind of peace to know that he had fixed things up with God, and that everything was going to be okay. And so I thank God for that, right? Sometimes a closed door is frustrating, but in this case, it gave me the privilege of being able to be there. For that. Yeah. And so then about 6 months, 8 months after that, I got a phone call from South America, from the South America regional team, saying, would you be interested in being a missionary again, right? Being a full-time missionary. And it was like going back into the, blender of what is God asking me to do? What have I prepared all this for? And, and so I remember asking for some time to pray about it. And a few days later, they called me again, and they were like, so have you prayed about it? And I was like, oh, I think we have a different idea of how long this is going to take, and I ended up giving them an answer 6 weeks later, and went to Ecuador. I didn't know where I was going to go when they called me. It was just kind of a, would you come and serve on our team? And then ended up in Quito, Ecuador.
So were you working out of the seminary there when you were in Quito? What was the situation like there?
Yeah, so I was so the seminary and the field office were on the same property, and so I was eventually I was the NCM coordinator for the region, and my office was in the field office, and so we were on that property, which ended up being a real blessing, because COVID-19 came, right, and everybody was kind of stuck in their houses and stuff, but we had some space on the campus to kind of walk around, and we wouldn't get in trouble, and that was really fortunate.
Is that where you met your wife? Had you already met your wife? What, did you meet her in Quito, or where did you meet your wife at?
So it was on one of those trips to go to the seminary. We some friends of ours, Angel Segui and his wife, had talked to me and said, hey, there's this girl, do you want to meet her? And they did the same thing to my wife, because she was working at the GMC at the time.
Matchmaking, huh?
Yeah, and we both said no, that we didn't want to meet the other person.
Oh, that's funny.
And thank God they didn't listen to us, because they surprised
That's
us
good.
and made
That's
us
good.
meet over a dinner at their house. And
Ah,
yeah, we started talking and we started dating just at the end of that year. And then we spent the first 8 months of our relationship without being able to visit or anything because of the pandemic. But then 2.5 years later, we got married. Yeah.
I bet in a way though you got to know each other through a lot of conversations in that distance time. Just a lot of probably dialogue happening at that point in time.
Yeah, I think it helps that we're both really good talkers, and we spent a lot of time on the phone. Some of our coworkers would joke with us if they saw one of us walking around, ask if we were on the phone with the other one,
Yeah, with one or the other. Yeah.
but it really gave us a foundation, right? A base that was really knowing a lot about the other person, right? Maybe not their mannerisms or other stuff like that, but we really knew a lot about each other's past and hopes and where we felt God was leading each one of us individually and how we felt that lined up, together. And so it was good. It was really hard to not be able to, share a meal. But we watched a lot of TV over Zoom and those kind of things,
You could Simo stream. I don't know if they still have that, but you could play a movie at the same time, whatever.
Yeah, they had there was an
shows.
app that had just come out like a couple of months into the pandemic that actually linked right up to Netflix, and one of us could start it, and it would start on the other one and pause, and
Yeah.
it was great.
Watch movies together. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. So I was trying to. So I think if the time frame lines up, were you working with the Fishers then? Were you working with Krista's parents when you were down in Ecuador?
Yeah. So they were there when I got there, and let's see, Lindsay and I left Quito at the end of 2022. So they had just left like 6 months before that, and Angel and Krista had come
Came down. Yeah.
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 Uh-huh.
So you got to work
we
with them
overlapped.
down there for a little bit. That was probably pretty fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. The good people, they have a lot of experience, right? And so you could learn a lot from them.
So in total time, you were in Quito 6 years. Did you say that? Or was it 7?
No, 3.5. 3.5 in Quito,
okay.
and 3 here in Madrid.
Okay. And so when did you start seminary? You said took 7 years. Maybe that's where I was getting at.
Yeah.
So when did you start at seminary? Did you start at seminary before you went to Quito? While you were in Quito? How did that work out?
Yeah. So I started seminary in like August of 2018. So it was just a year. It was like 8 months before I went to Quito. Yeah.
And then you finished while you've been in Madrid. You finished up at seminary. Okay.
Yeah, I graduated a year ago.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
So we were joking before we started recording. You're a lawful reverend.
Yeah, exactly. I was ordained this last district assembly last year,
or you're a revered lawyer. So were you ordained in Madrid? Is that where you got your licensing? Is that where the district assembly took place, or where did you get your ordination?
So I was ordained in 2025, April of last year, on the Mid-Atlantic district. So my membership and
where you had
all
started
that is still
with
there.
Delaware and all that. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So growing up in Delaware, did you were you always in Delaware? You said you had family from Pennsylvania. Is that where you born and raised for the most part? Delaware. You said your homebody was just in and around. Where at in Delaware? In most of your life there?
Yeah. So I was born in Milford, Delaware. But that's because it's the closest hospital to my parents' home in Lincoln, Delaware, which is an unincorporated town south of Milford. And anybody, if you've never been to Delaware, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But Dover's the capital. Yeah. And so I grew up there, went to school there, graduated high school there, and lived there while I was going to undergrad and law school. Actually, I commuted for a lot of both of those studies, about an hour and a half, hour and 10 minutes to the campus.
Not far from the ocean there. Well, the Delaware
Yeah,
Bay,
so
I guess, but the ocean.
Well, yeah. So we have the bay, and then also if you go further south, it is like ocean beaches. I worked at the beach for 6 summers actually, while I was in school.
Lifeguard?
No, I did ice cream for 4 summers. I was working scooping ice cream and um, helping with all the inventory and that kind of stuff. And then I did 2 summers. So at the beach towns there, a lot of them have like really low population numbers in the winter, and then in the summer there's a ton of people. And so what they do is they hire seasonal police officers to kind of help with crowd control and keeping things in order. And so I honestly did it because they paid better than the job that I had, and it turned out to be a lot of fun and a lot more. It gave me a lot more. Excuse me. It gave me a lot more freedom with my schedule for like church stuff too, because I wasn't working 7 days a week like I was at the ice cream place.
Yeah, I grew up in a town that was 3,000 in the wintertime and 30,000 in the summertime up in Michigan. So it was like you always had a summer job, but I mean, it was just a crazy influx of people and whatnot. So
yeah, and it was only a summer job, right? As soon as the summer was over, they didn't need
it was hard
anymore.
It was difficult. You're right. It was difficult to do it year round, but yeah, summer was beneficial though for that. But yeah, I did lifeguard. I never lifeguarded on the beach, but I did lifeguarding. Actually, believe it or not, one winter because they had a public pool and they needed lifeguards, so I did a little lifeguarding, but never on the beach. So never made it to that level, beach lifeguard. But yeah, but that's cool, man. So growing up as a homebody in a small town. And then you go to Ecuador. Now you're in Madrid. I mean, are you dealing with culture shock? Did you deal with culture shock? Not at all. Were you just kind of always a sense of adventure kind of guy? What was that like if you dealt with it?
Yeah, I think definitely have and still at times deal with culture shock. Even I remember when I went for those 6 months in Peru. I had already studied Spanish, right, in undergrad, and so I could converse pretty well. But there's different accents, and I was living with a family that was from a different country in South America, and their accent was different. And I remember a couple of days where like I felt like I wasn't understanding anything at the dinner table, right? And so I remember going back to my room and being like, "This is not going to work." After like 2 weeks in. And then I remember the same kind of thing, not the language thing, the kind of culture shock happening going home too. In that year that I was there. But I think anytime you kind of go into a new culture, a new environment, you're gonna have that culture shock, right? You have those things that are different. The things that sometimes even people frame it as that are not right about where you are, right? They're just different, right? And part of it is getting through that and learning how to adapt yourself to what needs to be adapted to and what you just kind of have to deal with. And I think the sense of calling really helps to get through that. I don't think it makes it go away, right? It doesn't make you invulnerable to culture shock, but it definitely feeling that purpose and that support. It helps you kind of push through and seek out the support that you need in those times.
Is there any moment that stuck out to you that you were like, whoa, thinking through, or was there any moments of doubt where you thought, man, I don't know if I should have done this, or maybe not doubt, but rethinking things like, God, was this the right place?
Oh, I've had tons of moments where I'm like, I can't believe this is happening. There was a moment, I won't say where or when, but I was helping with a team, and it seemed like everything was not the way that it was supposed to be. The accommodations that we had for them ended up being way less than what we anticipated. Like I'm talking like installing light bulbs and shower heads as we're moving stuff in, and no running water. And it was like, what have I gotten myself into? But the grace with which the team took it, I learned so much from them because they were there for a week, right? And they took everything with such grace and with such, we'll figure it out. I learned so much about how to be adaptable from them when as the missionary, I should have been the one, in my mind, at least at the time, the one kind of guiding them through these unmet expectations. But yeah, I think the hardest moments for me, and I'd probably say for us, and Lindsay would probably back me up if she were here. It's a really hard moment when things like paperwork just aren't working. When we came to Spain, we came as tourists for 3 months because we knew we had home assignment and General Assembly coming up. And so we knew that we could come for 90 days and go home back to the States and do those two things. Then we could apply for a residency. And so we did that. She she was pregnant. We found out a couple of weeks into being here, and she was really sick for the whole first trimester. But we went and did home assignment and General Assembly. And then at the end of home assignment, it was timed just right so we could go to the Spanish consulate in New York and get our residency paperwork and come back to Madrid to have the baby. And we got to the consulate in New York and we were missing one form. And it was like a situation where we should have had it. I misunderstood something or, didn't print it from the right place, but the website said you needed this number to print the form, but you couldn't get that number without having your residency unless you did a whole nother appointment. So it was just a bunch of things that seemed like they just weren't going the way that they were supposed to go. And, I remember sitting in the bottom of this building where the consulate was in downtown New York City and just thinking, if it's this hard, why, if you're calling us, God, why is it this hard? And I think that we've had multiple times where it feels like, those kind of things get in the way, right? And it's like, why isn't this easier, right? If I'm doing what God's asking me to do, why aren't doors opening much quicker? Why aren't the papers just waiting for us when we walk into the building, right? Like it feels like it should be that way. But it turned out that we were able to come back to Spain anyway, and have our daughter here. We did it as tourists again, and so it worked out because the paperwork would have taken long enough that we would have had to stay in the States to have her. And so, don't know exactly why it was so difficult other than we didn't have the form that we needed, right? But, maybe we try to look at situations like that and say, God might have been doing something different, right? And there's the passage that always comes to mind too is, Paul, the hero of the New Testament, right? Who's teaching all these churches, all these things. And he says, God, take this thing away from me. This one thing I don't want. And, what's God say to him? I'm good enough. My grace is sufficient. And so when it seems like things are really difficult and the doors aren't opening like they should, I try to remind myself of that and say, God's grace is sufficient. God's plan is sufficient. God is doing something that maybe we don't understand. And we just have to be patient and do what we can and do what we feel like he's asking us to do. And it'll happen how it's supposed to happen.
Yeah. So for, if someone's listening to this and they're wondering, maybe they feel a sense of calling, but, also wondering like what in your day to day. So maybe tell us what you're doing now and how that's changed from when you're in Quito. But what does a missionary do? What's the job of a missionary look like in your context, and maybe what's your experience as a missionary been like?
Yeah. So, um, in South America, I was the NCM coordinator for the region. So I worked with churches and districts and national NCM coordinators to kind of facilitate projects that were happening around the region. You know, churches that wanted to serve their community, that wanted to serve kids, that wanted to help with clean water issues, right? And so part of us coming to Eurasia was because the NCM coordinator here needed some support, and he invited us to come to help with NCM projects on the Eurasia region. So he's the NCM coordinator, and my title is Eurasia NCM Program Facilitator. And so it's
And for our
great.
listeners who
Yeah.
might not know all the Nazarene acronyms, Nazarene Compassionate Ministries is NCM.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
and maybe along with that, if you could just share, what does Nazarene Compassionate Ministries do? I mean, in a larger, if you could give us some context on that as well, that'd be great.
Yeah, so Nazarene Compassionate Ministries is the arm of the church, or the ministry in the church that comes alongside local churches and helps to, I would say, amplify the work that those churches are already doing in their community, right? The ways that those churches are partnering with God to serve the marginalized, the people who are struggling with food insecurity, people who don't have access to the same educational opportunities, people who um, are living as refugees or migrants in different places. Churches, local churches, identify those needs, identify groups that they want to serve, and then our job, as I see it, as Nazarene Compassionate Ministries, is to come alongside them and help, one, with planning of projects, right? Getting different steps in place so that they maybe know what they're trying to do and how to get there. Not that we're telling them what they want to do or how to get there, but sometimes just being able to sit down with people who have experience kind of planning these things. You can look at, 3 month, 6 month, 9 month goals, and then be able to check in at those periods and be able to say, hey, we haven't been able to get here where we want it to be. So how do we pivot, right? And then the other thing is we also connect those churches with people who have donated to Nazarene Compassionate Ministries, right? So we have generous donors all over the place who want to support these kind of projects, and part of what we do is, in the structure of the church, helping to identify the places where those donations are going to help to support the work of the church in a way that's going to have a lasting impact in the lives of those people, and also, showing people the love of Christ so that they want to learn more and see more and hear more about the church and the kingdom of God.
And so you're doing that right now. You were doing that in Quito, and now you're doing that in Madrid. So what is your day-to-day? What does your job look like? What do you do? You wake up, have your cup of coffee. Are you a coffee drinker? I should have started with that. Have your cup of coffee or tea.
Yeah, I'm a casual coffee drinker.
Casual.
Unless there are small children in my home.
Yeah.
Since we've had kids, I've been kind of relying a little bit more on the coffee to get going.
You need more caffeine. Yeah.
But so I go to the office, and the main thing that I do in the NCM side of things is connect with our field coordinators, who are the ones responsible for connecting with the churches. And we talk through projects, help to kind of get those projects in our system to connect them to donors, but also make sure reports are coming in, because reporting is important for a lot of reasons. But also we help with different trainings, right? So sometimes churches a lot of times don't lack passion, right? Don't lack the desire to do what God is asking them to do, to serve their neighbor. But sometimes it's like there's so many needs present. There's so many opportunities. So how do we narrow it down, and how do we say this is what we're going to do? And so part of what we do, and part of what I do, is connect with those churches sometimes and do trainings. A lot of what I do is in the office, looking through project proposals, looking through reports, making sure funding's getting where it's going to be. But then we also get to go and visit those sites and talk with the teams and learn from what they're doing so that we can translate their experience to other places on the region too. And so that's half of what I do. And then the other half is my wife and I, since we got here, have been helping to coordinate work for our Nazarene missions teams. And so this is a small district in terms of number of churches. This is a growing district. We have, I think, 7 churches on the Spain district and 3 or 4 church plants. And there is a lot of need for coming alongside them to make sure that their spaces are adequate, because we have several places on the district where the church had so many people that they actually couldn't let everyone who wanted to come into the service because the fire marshal would have a problem with it. And so our DS, Diego, has been looking for helping those churches to find properties that they could get into, but a lot of times because of the cost, right, they have bought like a welding shop that you go into and it's not ready to be a church. It's not in any way ready. And so we've been able to bring teams and help teams to come alongside what those churches are doing, and get a space ready, so that God's church is going to grow. And so we just have to help facilitate that, right? Create the space.
So with your background in South America and now in Spain, do you, maybe prior to traveling there, but did you find in your time there and also in Spain that you were learning a little more about the Roman Catholic Church? Is there interactions that you've had with? I'm assuming in both of those cultures, pretty much everyone is just assumed. I mean, they just go through the rites of the church. What's that like with the Nazarene Church as it operates in a heavily Roman Catholic culture?
Yeah. So in South America, where I was, I would probably say there were more people who kind of just by default were Roman Catholic, went through the kind of Catholic sacraments kind of thing. Here, from what I can tell, and I'm an outsider, I'm a visitor, trying to discern what I'm seeing. But I would say that probably there's much more secularism here. And so even families that traditionally might have fit into that category, are leaving that off to the side. And so there's a lot of secularism. And it's a challenge for the church, I would say, because in a lot of ways, Jesus has become kind of a cultural name, right? We're not in a context where you're running into a lot of people who have never heard who Jesus is, right? And really, most of the people that we interact with already have a whole kind of mental file folder of information about what the church is, what the Protestant church is, right? What evangelicalism is, who Jesus is. And, if I could get into some of those file folders, I would, toss some of those files out because they just don't line up with who I know Jesus to be, right? And who I've experienced Jesus to be. But it really becomes a barrier for a lot of people because if you already have all this information and know about something, I think it kind of dampens your curiosity a little bit, right? You're not looking to find out what this is all about because you have an idea, right? And you've made a decision. And so in a lot of ways, it's the task is not just preaching who Jesus is. It's breaking down some of those preconceived ideas of what the church is and what the church has done and what Christianity, being a Christian, is, so that people can have a real encounter with Jesus, and the Holy Spirit can reveal itself to them, so that they can have that authentic relationship with Jesus. And so it's not just even not just another like checkbox on a form about their demographic information, right?
So early on, you started studying Spanish. Was there something that made you want to learn Spanish, or how did that work? How did your love for Spanish happen?
Yeah, so I started studying Spanish in ninth grade. And I took 5 semesters in high school, and then my undergrad was in Spanish. And so I don't know if it was just something that I felt like an affinity to, or if it's because of the way my brain works. Language makes sense to me, right? Like thing like grammar and all of those things just fit in a good way in my brain, which is really hard to describe. But like I see a new word and my brain, connects it to other words that I know from other places and what might be the history of it, and then it kind of just all fits into this big puzzle. And so I think part of it is that I just really enjoyed learning another language, which is not the case for, I would say, 90+% of my classmates in high school, and even those who had chosen to study it in college. It was more like a thing they had to do. Whereas, like, if I could have filled my schedule with all language classes, I probably would have, because I really enjoy it.
Yeah, that's good. So how do you like to consume content? Are you a movie watcher? You mentioned you watch movies with your wife. You're a book reader, podcast listener. What's your way to just kind of, if you're learning information or just for pleasure, how do you like to consume content?
Yeah, I think I kind of vary. So I go through like phases. So I'll go where I listen to a lot of podcasts for a while, or then I'll go for a time period where I'm watching stuff on TV or on Netflix, and then right now I'm reading a lot, just silly fiction books and stuff, that some of them are things that I read when I was a kid that I'm just kind of jumping back to nostalgia kind of stuff.
Can you share any? I just started Lord of the Rings. Anything like that?
Yeah, so Lord of the Rings is I last year I got through.
I should say I restarted it. I meant to say that in the sense I've read it before, but I'm rereading it, kind of thing. But yeah.
Yeah. So I it's on my list. It's one of the next things that I'm gonna read. But I'm trying to think what the last book. I can't. I totally blank on all of.
See, I think I've read The Hobbit multiple times. I've read The Fellowship multiple times. I think I've read The Two Towers twice. This is terrible. This is why and again, pray for me that I get through this. I've putzed out. It's like I've read through The Fellowship multiple times because it's like I'm going to start this over, and I putz out and like halfway through Return of the King, which is terrible for the Lord of the Rings Tolkien listeners out there. My apologies, but yeah, I'm planning to finally get through it all. But I for me, I go through phases too. My mind works where it's like I get on a subject and it's like I want to know everything about that subject right now, and then it's not that I get sidetracked, but then once I feel that I've played with that enough, kind of thing, I jump to another one. But that's kind of how my mind works. But
yeah, I have a similar experience with the Tolkien books. I wanted, I think, to get to the I don't know how to pronounce it. The
Silmarillion. Yeah, I started that too. I got maybe halfway through. That almost reads like a dictionary, and like those nerdy encyclopedias of like Marvel and stuff. I'm gonna have a couple of those too. It kind of reads like that a little bit, where it's just like going subject to subject.
Okay.
Interesting stuff. But some guy, I don't know if it's the same YouTube channel, but some guy put a lot of those stories to like YouTube videos with like pictures and explaining it. So I can share
Okay.
that link if you really want to
Yeah,
nerd out
great.
on
Great.
Tolkien stuff. But did you watch the Rings of Power? I only watched the first season. I want to watch the second season. I haven't watched the second yet. But
I think I've watched everything that's out so far.
yeah,
So
just two seasons, I think, right now.
Yeah, right now, in terms of like time to do those kind of
You're
things.
probably watching a lot of Disney movies, kids movies, right now.
Well, not
when
yet.
You get to watch a
'cause,
movie.
Yeah, Phoebe's only 2.5, so we're still
Okay.
kind of, pumping the brakes on some of the
more
TV
Sesame Street stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And our time gets filled with all kinds of stuff, and just having two little humans around is enough to fill our time. So sometimes I'll get to bed and I'll read like 5 pages and then fall asleep, and then the next night I need to reread those same 5 pages because I don't remember anything that happened. Yeah.
You're getting a lot of Dr. Seuss read and things like that then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we read Green Eggs and Ham I think 6 times last week.
Oh man, that's great. That's great. He's one of my favorite authors as well, so no shame in that game. But so do when you you mentioned podcasts, but when you read, you actually like to physically read, or do you like to listen to? Are you a book listener or physical copies?
So I have really enjoyed Kindle copies, reading on the Kindle. Why? 2 reasons. One, it's a much smaller thing to carry around in my back pocket if I'm, hopping on the metro or on a bus or standing waiting for a team to come in the airport or something like that. And 2, just we don't know how long we'll be here, right? We hope for a long time. It could be for
books
the rest
are heavy
of
to
our
move.
kind of
They're
time.
heavy to
move. Yeah, you can fit a lot of clothes in the weight space that you have for 5 or 6 books, right?
Yeah,
and so it takes up a lot of space and a lot of weight.
Yep.
And also, with library cards and stuff, it's a lot cheaper.
That's true. To interact with the Kindle.
Those digital books. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's nice. That's good. Yeah, I'm one of those shameful audio book lists. I do a lot of audio books, but I also have a Kindle. And I also have physical books. See, I need to just get rid of something in my life, but but mainly audio for me. So another just kind of fun question, but are you a picky eater or are you a lover of food? And what are some of the fun or not fun things you've eaten in your travels?
Well, I used to be a really picky eater. Like I would go to like the most plain restaurant you could think of and could not order a single thing off the menu that I didn't need to change. Right? Take the pickles off of this, take the mustard off of that. I want this kind of onion, not that kind of onion. To the point that my friends made fun of me one time from church, and they were like, "Do you ever just order something, or do you always have to change it up,
adjust it?"
And then yeah, exactly. And then when I went to Peru, I don't know if it was on the plane. I feel like it was on the plane. When I was going there, I was like, I'm going to just eat whatever there is. Whatever is put in front of me, I'm just going to eat it. And I did that the whole time I was there. And now I eat almost anything. Our friends that are serving in some other context that I haven't lived in or visited might say, well, I've got some things that you should try because I don't know if you'd be able to
handle
eat that.
Yeah.
But I've been able to handle most stuff. I had some durian when I visited Bangkok one time, in Quito and in Ecuador and Peru and the Andes, they have cuy, which is guinea pig. Sorry to everyone who has the pet guinea pig, but it's
you've eaten it.
Pretty tasty. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's hard for me to find something that I don't like.
What's some of the cultural foods in Madrid? Is paella one, or is that a coastal food? Is that more of a coastal food, or they eat that in Madrid?
Well, so I think it originated in like the Valencia area.
Okay.
Which is on the coast. But there's so much travel and stuff now, right? That foods that originated in one place are in another place. So here in Madrid, in Spain in general, there's the culture of tapas, right?
That's right.
Which is like
Yes.
small
Yeah.
plates.
Yeah.
And so you go
And that's fun. You
to
get
a
to try different
restaurant.
things.
Yeah, exactly. We don't get to do it as much, with small kids. Hard to, go out and sit at a restaurant, especially because there's a lot of long restaurant experiences. But there's a lot of really good seafood dishes here. There's a kind of typical sandwich in downtown Madrid that's a squid on a roll with a garlic sauce, and it's really good. Yeah, paella is really good. Trying to think what else. One of the cool things about the area that we live in here too is there's a huge number of different immigrant communities in our neighborhood, right? So from all different places, and so we have restaurants that specialize in food from all over, right? There's an Indian restaurant, there's a Peruvian restaurant, there's an Ecuadorian restaurant, there's a Brazilian place over there. There's a couple of different, Chinese or Japanese restaurants too. So we can, we live in a city, right? So there's a lot of options, but there's also a lot of really good options, and we like to eat. So it's really cool.
Yeah, that's good. You ever miss any of the food, American food fare back home, or what do you miss the most?
Two things that I miss. Chick-fil-A sandwich is pretty high up on the list. A spicy Chick-fil-A sandwich. Yep. And I really like Jelly Belly jelly beans.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So if our listeners want to send you some Jelly Bellies.
Yeah.
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 Well, we'll put your information in the contact. So as we get kind of closer to our hour here, I've tried to keep it in an hour. Sometimes I go long, but is there anything? And I'm stealing this from Dr. Stan Reeder. So if he's listening, but he has a great question to say. Is there a question you wish I would have asked you? It's a good catch-all question because then it covers my bases. But is there something you thought? I wonder if Nate was going to ask me about this. Just a glaring thing I missed in your profile. And I'm happy if you say no, Nate. You covered. You did well. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, because I got two questions at the end that might cover some things, but I didn't know if at this point.
That's a good question.
It is a great question. I like it. I like it if I'm stealing it, so I'm employing it.
No, I think we've covered a lot of
Right.
history.
Pat myself on the shoulder there.
Things. Yeah. Good job.
Now, here's a question I like to ask everyone because I think everyone rests differently, and I'm also sourcing some intellectual property for an issue we're doing on rest coming up at the end of the year. But I like to ask all of our listeners, I'm happy to ask all of our listeners, ask all of our guests, how do they rest? So how do you find yourself resting? I think that looks different for individuals.
Yeah, I think in an ideal situation, which is hard with little kids, right? I feel rested when I have time to kind of just walk quietly, maybe with the assistance of headphones to keep some of the city noise out, right? But just be kind of there to just process and think and pray and ask God, some of the things that come into my head. Ask God, what do you think of this? Why is this dwelling in my brain? And that's because I'm a thinker generally, and so not having that space sometimes can make me feel unrested, right? And so just being able to kind of do that wandering without a purpose really is freeing for me.
That's good. Yeah, I find that if I don't have walking spaces, I feel constrained somehow, so I kind of have to have that. I've noticed that that's a portion of my life where I just have to get out, and even if it's just walking around in a circle for a little bit on a sidewalk or something, but needing that space to do that. So that's good.
Yeah.
Well, and then the question, the kind of closeout question, well, I guess it's a twofold question, is how can our listeners be praying for you? But in that, what are you looking forward to in your ministry in the next year or the next following years? What are you praying for? Where do you want God to use you? Or where do you think God may be using you in Madrid?
Yeah, I think something that we've really, really enjoyed ministerially being here is our ability to be really connected to the local church and to the community where we live. We walk out our front door and we're in the thick of it, right? There's people on market day, thousands of people walking down our street to get to the market and so just being able to have that kind of connection to people and to really be a part of this kind of small but close knit group of churches on the district. There's hours in between us, or hours between us, some of the churches, but because there's so few churches, right? It feels like the pastoral group, which we're not the pastors, right? But we're supporting what they're doing, is close, and we know so much about what's going on in each of the churches, and just to see the passion that the pastors and the people in the churches have for bringing the gospel to communities and groups that don't have it here, in a place where where Christianity has existed for basically since its beginning, right?
Yeah.
It's really inspiring, and just to be able to be a part of what God is doing here is amazing, and that's what I would say we're looking forward to, is to continue to be able to support the pastors in what they're doing and support the churches however we can, and that would be part of what we would ask for prayer for, right? Is the pastors and the congregations here, that they would be able to continue to hear God's voice as the Spirit's directing them to plant churches in different places, or continue to. One of the cool things that happens here a lot is people come for other reasons to Spain, right? For work or because they have family, and so we'll hear. We'll get an email from somebody or a text message from somebody, and it's a lifelong Nazarene living in this other city in Spain, and they're like, we don't have a church here, and so just being able to, that God would continue to open up those opportunities and use people's movement to here and to different places as an opportunity for the gospel to make it into the towns and cities where it isn't yet, right? And specifically the message of holiness, right? That we would be able to support those people who are there and help them to start those groups that they're looking to start.
That's great. Well, thank you for spending this time. I mean, I love reconnecting. So when Michelle got me in contact with you, I thought, I know Chad. It was one of those things that was just great. So I know I told you that would be your last question, but I just have to ask this because you mentioned it, and I can cut it out if you want to. But you mentioned that you'll be having a mustache in the video, but we are not recording the video, so. A great mustache. I think it probably looks Spaniard to me. I mean, so is it a way of connecting in incognito with the culture?
No. So my problem is, I would say most Spaniard men who have facial hair, they do the whole thing, right? They do the mustache and the beard, and my genetics don't let me do the whole beard. It comes in looking like a globe, with spots with nothing, and so my dad had a mustache forever, as long as I knew him, and I just thought, why not give it a shot?
That looks great.
I had mixed reviews.
I had one for a little while. I might have to bring it back. You've inspired me to maybe bring the mustache. Same thing for me. I can get a mustache, but the rest doesn't come in yet. So, but yeah.
We'll see. All that matters to me is that Lindsay thinks it's okay.
Yeah, there you go.
She hasn't told me to get rid of it.
Most important audience right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, sir, it was a blessing to have you. Looking forward to
so much,
getting
Nate.
this up. All right. We'll talk to you
Yeah.
soon.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Holiness Today podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to us and follow us on social media. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, Amazon, Audible, and wherever else you may find your podcasts.